Buying a rare watch without a strong network is like navigating a minefield blindfolded. The risks are invisible, the stakes are enormous, and one wrong step can cost you a fortune. When most people imagine purchasing a rare watch, they envision prestige, exclusivity, and the intoxicating sensation of acquiring a mechanical treasure crafted by a legendary maison, such as Patek Philippe, Rolex, or Audemars Piguet. What remains invisible to newcomers, however, is the intricate architecture supporting every legitimate acquisition at the highest level of the market. Relationships cultivated over years, discreet introductions, layered trust mechanisms, reputation capital, and private channels of communication that rarely intersect with public listings. The rare watch ecosystem does not function like a conventional retail environment. It operates as a relationship-driven network in which credibility often outweighs liquidity. The most desirable references, early production runs, untouched vintage complications, rare dial variations, historically significant pieces, or watches accompanied by impeccable provenance almost never circulate openly. Instead, they travel quietly between seasoned collectors, specialized dealers, and auction advisors who have established mutual confidence through repeated interactions. Access is not granted simply because someone has financial capacity. It is extended to individuals whose names carry reliability within the community. Without a network, you are not merely lacking contacts. You are excluded from the primary flow of information that defines the real market. You do not hear about pieces before they surface publicly. You are not informed about watches discreetly offered off-market. You cannot distinguish inventory that has already been declined by sophisticated buyers, and you remain unaware of reputational nuances surrounding specific sellers. The listings you encounter online or through unfamiliar intermediaries often represent what is already circulated through informed circles. In highly competitive collectible sectors, what reaches the surface is frequently what insiders have passed on. A robust network provides three decisive advantages: early intelligence about availability, collective vetting from experienced eyes, and social accountability that discourages misrepresentation. Early intelligence allows you to evaluate opportunities before speculative hype inflates pricing. Collective vetting means multiple experts can scrutinize condition, originality, and historical accuracy. Social accountability ensures that sellers behave responsibly because their standing within the network is at stake. Absent these pillars, you are navigating asymmetrical information structures where others possess context you simply do not have. The result is not merely inconvenience, it is structural vulnerability. You are negotiating in a marketplace where seasoned participants operate with deeper archives, sharper pattern recognition, and shared memory of past transactions. In such an environment, isolation transforms curiosity into exposure. The illusion of access, believing that online platforms provide full transparency, conceals the reality that the most meaningful exchanges occur beyond public view. In rare horology, visibility does not equal opportunity, and participation without relationships often means playing a different game altogether, one in which the risks are amplified precisely because the invisible safeguards of community are absent. Today, the danger is no longer the obvious fake with poor finishing and wrong proportions. It is the near-perfect imitation, engineered with alarming precision. Counterfeit operations now replicate case dimensions, dial typography, lume texture, and even aging patterns with remarkable accuracy. To an untrained eye, everything can appear flawless. A rare model from Rolex might look authentic, yet a subtle bezel variation or incorrect handset can mean the difference between a legitimate collectible and an overpriced imitation. The same applies to complicated references from Patek Philippe, where true verification often requires movement inspection and archival confirmation. Without a network, you lack access to experienced collectors, independent watchmakers, and trusted dealers who can spot micro details instantly. You are left relying on the seller's word in a market where incentives are rarely aligned with your protection. Even more deceptive are Franken watches, assembled from genuine parts but historically incorrect combinations, reducing long-term value while appearing authentic. A strong network acts as a safeguard. Multiple informed opinions, quiet background checks, and shared knowledge of past transactions. Alone, you simply cannot replicate that collective expertise. And in rare horology, small mistakes do not cost hundreds, they cost tens or hundreds of thousands. In rare watch collecting, provenance is not a decorative detail, it is a decisive component of value. Two identical watches can exist side by side, yet the one supported by documented history, original paperwork, traceable ownership, and archival confirmation will command a dramatically higher price. Provenance transforms an object into a narrative backed by evidence. When a watch is linked to a notable figure such as Paul Newman, its desirability can multiply exponentially, not because the metal changed, but because the story is verifiable. However, the market rewards documentation, not mythology. Without a network, verifying that documentation becomes extremely difficult. You may not know whether the serial number aligns with the production year, whether the box and papers were originally delivered together, or whether the watch has quietly appeared in past auctions with undisclosed modifications. Established dealers and collectors often share discreet insights: a case that was over-polished, a dial that was replaced during service, a bracelet that does not match the period. These details rarely appear in listings, yet they significantly influence long-term value. If you purchase without confirming lineage, you inherit uncertainty. And uncertainty becomes a problem the moment you try to resell. Experienced buyers will scrutinize every element, and any inconsistency will be reflected in the price they are willing to pay. In the rare watch world, a missing chapter in a watch's history is not neutral. It raises suspicion. Without access to trusted contacts who can cross-check archives, confirm previous transactions, and validate claims of rarity, you are relying on surface-level information in a market that operates several layers deeper. The rare watch market is often presented as transparent and data-driven, yet in reality, it is deeply influenced by perception, timing, and strategic storytelling. Public auction results from houses such as Phillips, Sotheby's, and Christie's can create the impression that values only move upward. A single record-breaking sale can reshape expectations overnight, encouraging buyers to believe that every similar reference now commands the same premium. But headline results often represent exceptional examples: pristine condition, rare configurations, or historically important pieces. They are not the statistical average. Without a network, you rely almost entirely on public asking prices and media coverage. You do not see the private negotiations where sellers accept lower offers, nor do you hear about watches that sit unsold for months. You lack insight into dealer inventory pressure, shifts in collector taste, or quiet corrections happening behind the scenes. As a result, you may enter the market at the peak of enthusiasm, mistaking momentum for stability. Experienced collectors, by contrast, exchange informal information constantly. They know when a model is overheating, when supply quietly exceeds demand, and when narratives are being amplified to stimulate buying activity. In a market driven by scarcity and emotion, perception can temporarily distort value. Without trusted voices providing context, you risk paying premium prices for pieces that may not sustain those levels over time. Rare watches are portable, high-value assets, and that portability introduces legal and security risks that many independent buyers underestimate. Without a trusted network, you may unknowingly purchase a stolen piece, engage with a fraudulent intermediary, or transfer significant funds without adequate safeguards. Serial numbers can be altered, documentation can be manipulated, and a watch that appears legitimate today may later be flagged in international databases. If that happens, recovery is uncertain and reimbursement is unlikely. Established dealers operating within strong professional circles typically perform background checks, verify provenance through multiple channels, and structure transactions with clear contractual protection. An isolated buyer often relies on informal agreements, unfamiliar escrow services, or direct wire transfers to unknown entities. The financial exposure is substantial, and once funds are sent, reversal can be impossible. Beyond legality, there is personal security to consider. Meeting strangers while carrying or transferring six-figure sums is not trivial. Reputable networks reduce that risk by creating controlled environments, trusted introductions, and accountability on both sides. In rare watch transactions, discretion, documentation, and structured processes are not optional refinements. They are essential layers of protection that significantly reduce the probability of irreversible loss. Buying a rare watch is only half of the equation. Selling it is where reality often becomes clear. Liquidity in the high-end watch market is not automatic, even for desirable references from brands such as Audemars Piguet or Patek Philippe. Value on paper does not guarantee immediate demand in practice. Without a network, when the time comes to exit, you may discover that finding a serious buyer is slower, more complex, and more expensive than expected. Established collectors typically sell within trusted circles, offering pieces privately before considering public platforms. Dealers prioritize clients they know, both when buying and when reselling. Auction houses select consignments strategically, favoring sellers with proven credibility and well-documented watches. If you entered the market alone, you likely lack those relational advantages. Every potential buyer will require extensive verification, negotiations may become aggressive, and offers will often include substantial discounts to compensate for perceived risk. In contrast, a respected name within the community inspires confidence, accelerating transactions, and preserving pricing power. Reputation, once built, functions as an invisible asset attached to every watch you own. Without it, you are not just selling a timepiece, you are trying to convince the market to trust you from zero. And in a sector defined by discretion and confidence, that absence of relational capital can significantly reduce both speed and profitability when you decide to exit. The only real protection in the rare watch world is not luck, intuition, or even capital. It is relationships built over time. A strong network does not appear overnight. It is developed deliberately through consistent presence, genuine curiosity, and long-term engagement. Attending major watch fairs, visiting reputable retailers, studying auction catalogs, and engaging in thoughtful conversations with experienced collectors gradually establish credibility. Independent watchmakers, respected dealers, and seasoned enthusiasts become invaluable sources of perspective when trust is mutual rather than transactional. Over time, introductions happen naturally, opportunities surface discreetly, and warnings arrive before mistakes are made. Instead of reacting to public listings, you begin to access information earlier, with context attached. Instead of negotiating alone, you benefit from informed second opinions. Instead of relying solely on seller assurances, you can validate claims through multiple trusted voices. Building a network also requires contribution, sharing knowledge, demonstrating seriousness, honoring commitments, and behaving consistently. Reputation compounds slowly but powerfully. In a market where nuance determines value and subtle details separate exceptional pieces from average ones, collective insight becomes a decisive advantage. Rare watches are not merely objects. They circulate within a community structured around confidence and discretion. Without integration into that ecosystem, every transaction carries amplified risk. With it, uncertainty diminishes, decision-making improves, and long-term positioning becomes far more resilient. In the world of rare watches, isolation is the greatest risk of all. Money alone cannot secure authenticity, provenance, or market insight. Only relationships, earned trust, and deep engagement with the community provide the protection and perspective needed to navigate this complex, high-stakes arena. If you approach the market without a network, you gamble blindly. With a network, you participate with knowledge, confidence, and access, turning a mere purchase into a meaningful, lasting investment.